there was a righteous man from the people of God. It is said that he used to ride on the back of a huge snake when entering the village. When he used to pass from there, people screamed out of fear and questions surrounded him from every side. Was this man really one of the righteous servants of God, or was he a magician? Was this snake from his lineage, or was there a mysterious power that had granted him this ability? Some people closed their doors out of fear, while others looked at him in astonishment. The elderly women used to place their hands over their ears, and the children used to hide in their mother's arms out of fear. But the truth behind this mystery puzzled everyone. Outside the borders of the village, in an old house, lived Sheikh Saleh Al-Hajj Rahmatullah with his wife Fatima. Al-Hajj was an ascetic man who spent his time in worshipping God and advising people with patience, gratitude, and supplication. He was known for having his prayers answered, and many of the people of the village benefited from his blessings. But there was one thing that occupied the heart of Al-Hajj and his wife, and it was their deprivation of the blessing of children. Fatima used to cry every night while in prostration, pleading to God to grant her a child who would support her in her old age, and as a result of her sincere prayers, she hoped that God would bless her with long-awaited sustenance. And as the years passed, their hands remained empty, while the talk of the people in the village revolved around them mockingly. They used to say, "How can this man be a righteous servant while he cannot even get a response from God for his prayer? If he is not granted a child, how can he pray for good for us?" These words tore the heart of Al-Hajj, but he was content with patience and a smile. As for Fatima, she used to cry silently and carry in her heart a pain known only to God. And one night, when the moon was at its brightest, Al-Hajj woke up for the night prayer. He felt a deep sadness that he had never experienced before, so he prostrated to God, crying and supplicating, "O God, if I have no share in children, then grant me patience, and if it is destined for me, then grant me your mercy and generosity." And on the following morning, Fatima came to give him good news with overwhelming joy. "O Hajj, I have good news. I am pregnant." Al-Hajj could not hold back his tears. It was a moment he had waited for a long time, and soon the news spread in the village like wildfire. Those who used to mock him yesterday now came to congratulate him as if nothing had happened. The months passed, and Fatima's health was declining, but she was glowing with a special light, as if God had answered her prayers, until the awaited day came when the women of the village gathered to help her in childbirth. But when she gave birth, the midwife screamed in intense shock and stepped back, terrified. She had seen that what came out was not a child, but a shiny black snake. The women's voices rose with screams for help, but Fatima, despite her weakness, extended her hands toward it and saw that it moved gently on her arm as if it felt her affection. It was not venomous and was not aggressive, but it seemed to understand its mother's love for it. When Al-Hajj Rahmatullah entered and saw the scene, his face turned pale and he said, "O Fatima, this is a test from God. We must leave it in the wilderness." But Fatima completely refused and held it, saying, "This is my son. I will never give him up." The story spread in the village and people began whispering, "It is a curse. It is the anger of God. This is an unnatural creature." And the elders began asking Al-Hajj to take the snake away from the village because they feared a disaster might occur. But Fatima did not back down from her stance. She used to treat the snake as if it were her real child, carrying it, feeding it, and talking to it. Strangely, it used to respond to her, come close to her when she called it, and did not show any aggression toward her. As the months passed, it began to grow faster than ordinary snakes. Normally, it would grow slowly, but this snake doubled in size within a few short months. This increased the fear of the villagers. One day, some women came to see Fatima, but they froze in their places when they saw the huge snake coiled around the wall of the house. One of the women said in a low voice, "Fatima, this is a wild creature that may become a danger to all of us." But Fatima replied firmly, "This is not a wild creature, this is my son." Nevertheless, news spread in the village that the snake had become very large and that it might pose a real danger. The next day, the men of the village came to the house of Al-Hajj Rahmatullah, and their faces were full of worry. One of them said, "O Hajj, we respect you, but this snake may pose a danger to our children." Al-Hajj stood silent. He felt a deep sadness because he knew that their words were true, but he also knew that Fatima would never agree to give up her son. He took a deep breath and said to them, "Give me some time. I will ask God to guide me to what is right." And that night Al-Hajj prostrated while crying, saying, "O God, guide me. Is this a trial or is there wisdom I do not understand? If this snake is a danger, then inspire me to do what is right. And if it is something else, then make me understand your wisdom." As for Fatima, she was embracing her snake son, and she felt that this creature was not ordinary, but carried a secret known only to God. But her heart was full of love for him. She saw how the snake would come near her when he saw her tears, as if he was trying to comfort her. On the following morning, some women of the village came again, but this time there was some sharpness in their voices. One of them said, "Fatima, your son has become very big to the extent that he now climbs trees. What if he hurts someone one day? Our children play under the trees and he sits on top of them. If he attacks someone, we will not forgive you. Snakes by nature are predatory, and your love for him will not change this fact." Fatima listened to their talk with teary eyes. She knew they were afraid, but she was not able to give him up. At that moment, the snake raised his head from the corner of the room and went out to the courtyard of the house. His shiny black body looked more frightening under the sunlight. The women stepped back in fear. "Look how huge he has become. He will eat us all one day," one of the women screamed. Fatima looked at her son. She saw in him love, while in the faces of the others there was nothing but terror. She realized that if things continued like this, the villagers might make a decisive decision, either to kill him or expel them all from the village. But she whispered to herself, "He is my son. How can I give him up?" One of the women said gently, "We know that you love him, but you have to think about the consequences. Can we really ignore the danger he might pose to everyone?" Fatima fell silent. She knew they were right, but she was not able to make a decision. That night, she sat by her window watching her son as he lay in the yard. His large green eyes were glowing with a strange shine, as if he understood everything. This was the moment of decision. Would she let him go, or would a miracle happen? The night was quiet, the moon lighting the sky, but Fatima's heart did not know peace. She sat at the doorstep, watching her snake son, who had not moved from his place, and suddenly, tears poured from her eyes when she saw him crawling toward the door of the house. He looked bigger and stronger than ever before, and when he saw her, he rushed toward her and placed his head at her feet, as if he was bowing to her. She whispered with a trembling voice, "My son, you have returned." He raised his head slightly as if he was answering her affirmatively. Then he slowly went toward the room where Al-Hajj Rahmatullah was lying. Al-Hajj opened his eyes and felt surprise and amazement. When he saw the snake before him, the snake approached his father, then suddenly stretched his long, strong body before him and bowed as if to tell him that he was ready to carry him wherever he wanted to go. Al-Hajj extended his trembling hand and placed it on the head of the snake, then calmed down and said, "Glory be to God. We thought this was a trial, but it turned into a blessing." Tears were falling from Fatima's eyes. She did not know that her son would become like this, but now he was offering her and her husband what no one else could offer. On the following morning, the people of the village witnessed a scene no one had expected. Al-Hajj Rahmatullah was riding on the back of a giant snake, and the snake was carrying him toward the mosque. The people of the village stood stunned, their eyes full of amazement and astonishment. "What is this? We thought this snake was a curse, but he became a means to carry his father." The story spread throughout the village like wildfire. Those who had mocked Hajj Rahmatullah just yesterday now looked at him with awe, their faces red with shame. The snake they had once believed to be a curse was now the one serving his father. It carried Hajj Rahmatullah to the mosque, to funerals, and wherever he needed to go, as if God had made it a means to honor his parents. Fatima lifted her eyes to the sky and said in her heart, "O Allah, all praise be to you. You have made my son a sign for the people." But not everyone was convinced. Some began whispering, "This cannot be natural. How can a man ride a snake? He must be a sorcerer. Maybe he used magical spells or made a pact with demons. We thought he was a pious man, but he seems more like a magician." These whispers reached the ears of Hajj Rahmatullah and caused him deep pain. He had spent his life serving the villagers, praying for them and guiding them, and now they were beginning to doubt him. This was a new test for him, but he remained silent, looking up to the sky and wondering, "Oh Lord, is this another trial?" His eyes were filled with sorrow and pain. When Fatima heard the villagers talk, she rose in anger and said, "What kind of people are these? Yesterday, they sat at your feet asking for blessings, and today they accuse you of sorcery." Hajj Rahmatullah sighed and replied calmly, "Fatima, trials never end in this world. On the path of truth, there are always hardships." Hajj Rahmatullah began spending most of his time in worship, only leaving the house when necessary. One night, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and a violent storm broke out with thunder and lightning. Suddenly, heavy rains fell, accompanied by large hailstones crashing down with such force they destroyed everything in their path. People hid in their homes, terrified. The fields were ruined, trees snapped, and livestock were injured. That night, the entire village was in panic. People asked, "What is happening to us? Is this the wrath of God?" When the clouds cleared the next morning, the village looked like a disaster zone. The fields were barren, crops buried in mud, and animal corpses scattered everywhere. Faces were full of fear and confusion. "We've lost everything. What will we eat? How will we live? Is this a punishment from God? What should we do?" Hunger began to choke the villagers, and they started searching for a solution. One of them said, "We should go to Hajj Rahmatullah. Maybe he has an answer for us." At first, some hesitated, but extreme hunger forced them to let go of their pride. One by one, all the villagers gathered in front of Hajj Rahmatullah's house. Their faces were pale from hunger, their eyes full of fear and helplessness. Children cried, mothers were desperate, and the elderly prayed for mercy. "O Hajj, guide us. We are dying of hunger. We have nothing left. If a miracle doesn't happen, we will all perish." Hajj Rahmatullah looked at his snake son, as if his eyes were asking, "My son, what should I do?" The snake raised its head and looked at his father with its glowing green eyes. Suddenly a glowing precious stone fell from its mouth. Hajj Rahmatullah caught the gem in astonishment as the villagers watched in awe. Then the snake dropped another gem, then a third, until Hajj Rahmatullah's hand was full of 3 of the rarest and most precious jewels. A man from the crowd, a jeweler, stepped forward and examined the gems. His eyes widened in shock. "My God, these gemstones are priceless. If we sell them, we can buy enough food to feed the entire village for years." Hajj Rahmatullah raised his hands to the sky and thanked God. Then he took the gems and traveled to the city, where he sold them to a wealthy merchant and received a large sum of money. As soon as he returned, he purchased an enormous quantity of crops and food supplies from a neighboring village and arranged for it to be transported back. Within days, caravans of camels arrived, loaded with provisions and food. The joy in the village was indescribable. Children clapped with delight, women wept with gratitude, and men raised their hands in prayer. Look at the greatness of God. We thought Hajj Rahmatullah was a sorcerer, but in truth he saved our lives, and his snake son, whom we once feared, has become a mercy to us all. Hajj Rahmatullah looked at his wife, Fatima, who was crying joyfully while looking at her son. She placed her hand on his head and said, "My son, you saved all our lives." The villagers realized that what they had once considered a trial was actually a great blessing. The snake they feared had become their savior, but Hajj Rahmatullah didn't stop there. With the money from the gemstones, he didn't just buy food, he decided to do something greater. The first thing he did was build a beautiful mosque in the village so the people could thank God and draw closer to him. Once the mosque was completed, a new spirit of faith spread through the village. People began to pray regularly, becoming more kind and compassionate. Then he built a religious school where poor children who had no chance to study began learning the Quran, religious sciences, and worldly knowledge. The light of knowledge began to spread through the village, transforming it from a place of fear to one filled with faith and peace. As for the snake son, he became a symbol of the village. He carried his father on his back to the mosque, to the school, and wherever he needed to go. His loyalty and dedication won the hearts of the villagers who came to love and respect him. We once thought he was a curse, but he turned out to be a mercy from God. Over time, Hajj Rahmatullah built a luxurious house in the village and lived a comfortable life filled with respect and appreciation. As for Fatima, her heart was finally at peace. Her son, though different, fulfilled his role as a devoted and righteous child. He was not only a blessing to his parents, but to the entire village. And, to this day, people still talk about his story, about the man who found mercy in the most unexpected of places. Did you enjoy this story? Share your thoughts in the comments.